Salams and welcome. Thank you for joining me in the Quran Summaries by Maulana Sayyid Abul Maududi, Rah'ma'tul'laah, in his wonderful book, the Tafhim al-Quran, the meaning of the Quran. And today we are busy with chapter number 101, Surah Al-Qariya. Alhamdulillah, we are coming to the completion, Khatam al-Quran. May Allah SWT accept it. We are now beyond verse number 100. Now we're coming to this 114 verses in the Quran. Right, let's get going. The surah takes its name from the first word, Al-Qariya. This is not only a name but also the title of its subject matter, for the surah is entirely devoted to the day of resurrection. The period of revelation. There is no dispute that this is indeed a surah from the earlier days of Mecca, right? Because it is dealing with the resurrection. Let's look at the theme and subject matter. It's very short summary, alhamdulillah. When we come to the end, the short verses, short. The theme is resurrection and the hereafter. At the outside, the people have been aroused and alarmed, saying, the great disaster, Al-Qariya, Mal-Qariya, Wama adraka mal-Qariya. Right? What this great disaster? What is this great disaster? And what do you know what the great disaster is? Thus, after preparing the listeners for the news of a dreadful calamity, this thing known as the resurrection, which they are denying or which they cannot understand. How can such a thing happen? The resurrection has been depicted before them, saying that on that day, people will be running about in confusion and bewilderment, just like so many scattered moths around a light. And the mountains will be uprooted and turned to dust, and all the cohesion, and will fly about like carded wool. Then it has been said that when Allah's court is established in the hereafter, and the people are called upon to account for their deeds, the people whose good deeds are found to be heavier than the evil deeds will be blessed with bliss and happiness, and people whose good deeds are found to be lighter than the evil deeds will be cast into the deep pit full of burning fire, in an abode of eternal misery. Alright, let's just look at a few verses. Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Al-Qariya, Mal-Qariya, Wama adraka mal-Qariya. The great disaster. What is the great disaster? And what will explain to you what the great disaster is? The day when all of mankind shall be like scattered moths, and the mountains like carded wool of different colors. Then he whose scales are heavy shall be in a state of bliss, and he whose scales are light shall have the deep pit for his dwelling. And do you know what it is? It is a raging fire. So the word Qariya literally means the striking one. Qar is to strike one thing upon another so severely as to produce a noise. In view of this literal meaning, the word Qariya is used for a dreadful disaster and a great calamity. So this is referring to the first stage of the day of resurrection, when the consequence of the great disaster, the whole order of the present order of the world will be overthrown and turned into chaos. The people will be running about in confusion and bewilderment because of the great sound and disaster, like so many scattered moths around a light, not knowing what is going on. And the mountains will be flying around, and the mountains are compared to wool because of different colors, because of the existence of a variety of colors in them. The second stage of resurrection is when people will be standing in front of the divine court of the Creator Supreme, and the word mawazin in the original is a plural of mawzan as well as mizan, which is the scale. In the first case, mawazin would imply the deeds which might have some weight in the sight of Allah the Creator Supreme, and thus be worthy of appreciation. And in the second case, mawazin would imply scales of a balance. In the first case, the meaning of mawazin being heavier or lighter is that the good deeds will be heavier or lighter as against the evil deeds. For in the sight of God, in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, only good deeds have any weight or worth. truth, right? In the second case, the meaning of mawazin being heavy is that the scale of the good deeds will be heavier than the scale of the evil deeds. In Allah Almighty's balance of justice, and the being light means that the scale of the good deeds will be lighter than the scale of the evil deeds. Besides this, in Arabic idiom, the word mizan is also used for a weight known as wazan. Accordingly, the weights being heavy of light or light implies the good deeds being heavy or light, right? And then in Surah Al-Araf, we read in verses 8 to 9, on that day, the weight will be identical with the truth. Accordingly, those whose scales will be heavy will alone come out successful, and those whose scales are light will be the ones who have incurred loss upon themselves. Then in Surah Al-Ahqaf, we read in verses 103 to 105, O Prophet, say to them, should we tell you who are the most unsuccessful people and miserable failures in regard to their deeds? They are those whose endeavors in the worldly life had gone astray from the right way, from the Sirat al-Mustaqim, but they were under the delusion that everything they were doing was rightly directed. These are the people who rejected revelations of their Lord and did not believe that they would ever stand before Him. Therefore, all their deeds are lost, for we will assign no weight to them on the day of resurrection. Then in Surah Al-Anbiya, verse 47, we read, on the day of resurrection, there's a conclusion. On the day of resurrection, we will set up just and accurate balances so that no one will be wronged in the very least, even if it be an equal in weight into a grain of a mustard seed. We will bring it forth to be weighed, and we will suffice for the ultimate and final reckoning. Stay well, look after yourself. Please do not forget the day of judgment. Stay well, look after yourself. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.